In 1868, the richest man in modern history sat down and wrote a letter to his son, not about oil, not about business deals, about money itself. And over the next decades, John D. Rockefeller would write 38 of these letters, teaching his son the rules that schools have never taught anyone. Here is why that matters to you. Adjusted for inflation, Rockefeller was worth around $400 billion. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates together barely match that. And yet the man lived by 6 money rules so simple that a 16-year-old could apply every single one of them. Today, you get all 6. Rule 1. Know where every cent goes. At 16 years old, Rockefeller bought a small red notebook. He called it Ledger A. Inside it, he wrote down every cent he earned and every cent he spent, every donation, every train ticket, every coffee. He kept that notebook until the day he died, and he treasured it more than his mansions. Think about that. The man who owned 90% of America's oil still tracked the price of a sandwich, not because he was cheap, because he refused to be blind. Most people today cannot tell you, within $200, what they spent last month. Their money lives in a fog, and you cannot manage a fog. Ask yourself honestly, if I asked you what you spent last Tuesday, would you know? Rockefeller would. What gets written down gets controlled. What stays invisible stays broken. Rule 2. Make every dollar an employee. Rockefeller saw money differently than everyone around him. To his neighbors, a dollar was something to spend. To him, a dollar was a worker. You could send it out, and it would come back with friends. He said the person who works for money all their life has it backwards. Money is supposed to work for you. Here is the modern version. If you buy a $200 gadget, you employed nothing. If you put $200 into an index fund, you just hired a tiny worker that earns while you sleep, never complains, and never quits. At a normal 7% return, that worker doubles itself roughly every 10 years. 200 becomes 400, becomes 800, becomes 1,600. You did nothing. The employee did everything. Poor people buy things. Rich people hire dollars. Rule 3. Start at the bottom and treat it as an advantage. Rockefeller's first job paid 50 cents a day as a bookkeeper's assistant. In his letters, he told his son something surprising. He was glad he started there, because at the bottom, nobody watches you, so every mistake is cheap. You learn how the machine actually works from the floor up. The people who start at the top, he wrote, never learn what holds the building. This is the opposite of what social media tells you. Everyone wants to skip to the yacht, but the skills that made Rockefeller rich were built in the boring years. Reading numbers, spotting waste, negotiating freight costs a few cents at a time. The bottom is not a punishment. The bottom is a classroom with free tuition. If you are starting small right now, you are not behind. You are in training. Rule 4. Debt is a servant you never let become the master. Rockefeller used debt exactly one way, to buy things that pay. Refineries, rail cars, pipelines, assets that generated money to pay the loan back and then kept generating. What he refused to do was borrow for appearance. No borrowed carriages, no borrowed mansions, nothing that ate money instead of making it. Compare that to today. The average American car payment is over $700 a month, borrowed against a machine that loses value every single day. That is the master and servant reversed. The bank collects, the car shrinks, and the borrower calls it normal. The rule is brutally simple. Borrow only for what pays you. If it does not pay you, you pay for it twice. Rule 5. Reputation compounds faster than money. In his letters, Rockefeller hammered one idea again and again. Your name is your first fortune. Early in his career, banks lent him money in a financial panic when they were lending to no one. Why? Because for years, every small loan he took, he repaid early. Every promise kept. His name had a credit score before credit scores existed. Here is what most people miss. Compound interest applies to trust. Every kept promise deposits. Every broken one withdraws with penalties. And one day, the biggest opportunity of your life will not go to the smartest person in the room. It will go to the one everybody trusts. Money opens doors. Reputation keeps them open. Rule 6. Pass down method, not money. Rockefeller knew the statistics before anyone measured them. Most family fortunes die by the 3rd generation. The money survives the founder, but the method dies with him. So he refused to just hand his son wealth. He wrote him letters. He made him track allowances in a ledger, the same way 16-year-old John once did. He transferred the operating system, not just the files. 70% of wealthy families lose everything by the second generation, 90% by the third. Not because the money runs out, because the teaching never happened. And this rule is not just for parents. It applies to you tonight. The habits you build now are the inheritance you are writing. Money handed down without method is a countdown. Method handed down without money still builds a fortune. So here is where you start, not with all 6, with Rule 1. Tonight, open your Notes app and write down everything you spent today. Every coffee, every subscription. Do it for 7 days. That is Ledger A, and it costs you nothing. Then hire your first employee. Any amount, even $20, into something that pays you back. Rockefeller started with 50 cents a day and a red notebook. The notebook came first. Which of these 6 rules hits hardest for you? Drop the number in the comments. And if you want more of the money rules nobody taught us in school, subscribe. That is exactly what this channel is for.